Hello, Peekers. Welcome back. I'm Miranda.
And I'm Mackenzie, and this is your one-stop shop for storytelling
Tea spilling.
and to keep up on all the book talk drama that you have been missing out on.
First of all, let's give a shout out to your new background. Welcome to the forest.
Welcome to the trees. Welcome. That's all I have to say about that. It's really a ghetto setup. This is my living room, and we're right up against the window, and there's a little stand backdrop, and I've got the tapestry hanging. So I hope it looks good because it was $100 on Amazon altogether. So
You're kidding. $100?
yeah, but it's really portable. I got it because it's very easily collapsible and portable. So if we want to take it to go.
Did it come with, are you talking about $100 total with the stand and the tapestry or just the tapestry?
Both. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, you paid $100 for the tapestry? Mine was like 20.
No. The tapestry was like 20. But the stand, all the little clips that come with it also has a green screen background. So if we really want to get crazy and figure out I don't know how to do any of that, but if we wanted to, we could. I've got a green screen.
Yeah, we can barely get this remote recording up and running, so we're going to have to push pause on that green screen. I don't know what we did to fix the problem.
We didn't do anything.
Something's been fixed tremendously. We literally didn't do... Okay, yeah. So that's telling me that it's the software.
Yeah,
too.
It's not us. Definitely not us.
It's not us. I know that for sure. But do you have any other life updates, or is the forest your only one?
Yeah, pretty much that's it. I might be going to see our third bestie, Leticia, today after we're done for a little cutesy girly sleepover. So we'll see.
Oh, you're going to do a sleepover?
Maybe.
That's so cute and fun.
Leticia was like, AJ works tomorrow, and I heard him in the background, and he was like, no, I don't. And I was like, does he want to hang out too, I guess? And she was like, yeah, apparently.
While we're on the topic, did you guys see the message I sent you yesterday on Snapchat about the snowboarding rave thing in Austria?
To me?
Or did you ignore it?
I
Both of you
haven't
on
ignored
Snapchat.
it. So sorry.
Well, I sent it to, because everybody opened it. So yes, I knew you ignored it. But I sent it to AJ because I know AJ likes to snowboard too. And I was like, send it to him. He's like, ask your friend, bruh. And I was like, oh,
what's with the
attitude?
attitude?
The hostility? I'm trying to invite you. And then I said, also, I already did. And she ignored me.
So got to move on to the husband.
It's in Austria. It's next April, I think. So we have a whole year to plan. I think the tickets are about to go on sale, and there's like a whole layaway plan. That's what me and Colby are thinking about doing. But how fun would it be to go to Austria out of country for a whole week, do some snowboarding a couple days and raving, and then do some exploring and spa stuff all out in Austria and like that area. I don't know what's around Austria, but
I volunteer.
Please do. I'll let you know whenever we put our tickets down so you can decide if you want to or not.
You don't even have to convince me. I'm already in. So
I love that. That's what I love about you, little girl. That's what I love about you.
Thanks, BB.
Yeah, that's pretty much the biggest life updates for me is the potential to go to Austria. And yeah. So I guess without further ado, we can go ahead and jump into this story time. So today we are going to be covering Sarah J. Maas's Crown of Midnight, chapter 30 through 44. And I know I've said this before, but I mean it for real this time. This is when things get real.
You do say that every single time. You're like, guys, the story is
so
really
much
picking up. It's really coming to a head right now.
Telling you, because I'm doing, obviously you guys know we're doing the best here, trying to summarize these whole books. It's near impossible to tell you guys everything that's happening. So I just have to emphasize to you that even when I'm telling you what's happening, there's even more going on behind the scenes.
There's even more.
We're only on Crown of Midnight. Jeez Louise, it's crazy, actually. Okay, so let's do a quick recap real quick. Where we left off, Archer tells Celaena that for the last 6 months, he and Nehemiah have been working together to raise an army for Terrason. He tells her this after she shows up trying to save Cale from his kidnapping, which is also when Celaena finds out that Cale knew about the threat on Nehemiah's life, the threat that actually came to fruition that night and tragically stole Princess Nehemiah's life, and a horrific murder scene. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered the gist, unfortunately.
No. Yeah.
It's really sad.
So we're picking up to Celaena finding Nehemiah's murder scene. She essentially dissociates from her body and she's just registering everything and everyone running in. Dorian runs in to check on her and she's still kind of out of it, but she slowly reaches her hand up to wipe a tear falling from his face. Dorian was pretty close to Nehemiah as well, so he's pretty heartbroken to see everything. Kale finally shows up to the scene and he's trying to talk Celaena down from losing her shit because she's still just kind of standing there in a haze, stoic, dissociated. And that definitely backfired for him because she ends up turning around so slowly. And then she launches at Kale, 100% trying to kill him. And I have to pause at this part because this is such a contrast from how she was just moments ago running to save Kale from his kidnapping, just comparing how much she loved him the way she loved Sam. And now she's here trying to kill him.
It's so hard though because I feel like I can see her motives for why she wants to kill him. Though I do think she's being overly aggressive. When I was reading it for the first time, I was like,
Yeah,
girl, chill out. You know, this was not malicious. Like, he did not
exactly.
intentionally try to get Nehemiah killed, but
Kill.
he was
Yeah.
so negligent too.
Yeah, and I think as I've continued reading, that's pretty much what the issue is. It's deeper than him not just telling her that. It's like where they're at in this moment. He's choosing to respect the king over his friendship with Celaena.
A hundred
So yeah,
percent.
so they end up fighting. She's like mauling at his face. Kale's trying to reach to her through this rage that she's in. He's like, "I'm your friend. Listen to me. I'm your friend." And that's when Celaena yells. She says, "You will never be my friend, only my enemy." And she gets her knife about an inch from his heart with like this hidden force stops her. And she looks at Dorian because she can tell it's coming from him. And that's when one of Kale's men takes this distraction as an opportunity to knock her out. And then they throw her into the royal dungeons. And then between that time that she's in the royal dungeon, she's drinking a lot of sedative waters to kind of like stay low key and out of it. And she's missed now at this point, she's missed Nehemiah's funeral. She's avoiding the fact that Kale betrayed her. She's avoiding the fact that she almost killed Kale. And then she's also avoiding the fact that Nehemiah is dead. And so, in the brief moments that she is awake down here in the royal dungeon, she's taken the time to talk to her prison bestie, Lady Caltaine. And Caltaine is still having these weird dreams about wings, but there's some new tea going on. Lady Caltaine says that there's definitely something sus going on with the king and Duke Parrington, and that the king told her she has to go with Duke Parrington to Marath and marry him, or to stay in the dungeons forever. And she's like, whatever evil it is that they're creating, I'm afraid I'm about to greet it. And I want to pause here just to kind of like, I guess, remind everybody what's kind of going on that the king and Duke Parrington are up to. Do you want to fill them in on that? They're like refresh.
Yeah, so all the way through the first book and then little hints of it through the second book, it's talked about the king wearing these black rings or a black ring. And it also says Duke Parrington wears a black ring. And then Roland in this book also has a black ring, which is Dorian's cousin. I think we kind of briefly talked about him. And
Yeah.
basically, they're concerned that the king is using these black rings to either control people or incite violence. They don't know what these black rings are for. And then also from the first book, Cain was wearing a black ring. And we saw he got bigger, he got stronger. And then in that final duel, he was almost possessed, like very angry, very strong, very malicious. And obviously, all of these people are seeming to be aligned in whatever control or evil they might be conducing,
Building.
building, whatever you want to call it. So
Yeah.
very scary.
Yeah. And I just wanted to bring that part up again because I know that there's not a lot of answers to what we're talking about by the king and Duke Parrington being sus. But just know that there's something brewing. There's something related to those black rings and something related to these demonic possessions. And that's all we really know for sure right now, or like our hunches.
And we get a lot more into it in the third book, kind of
Mm-hmm.
what those black rings signify, kind of
Mm-hmm.
what it's leading up to and type things. So it is coming. Hold your horses. Like everybody reading these books is confused in the beginning. You're like, what
Yes.
is going on? So if you are either reading along or
Yeah.
listening and you're like, I'm really not understanding, you're not supposed to understand at this point. So
You're supposed to be thinking, critically thinking
yeah,
here. Okay,
Miranda
guys?
always comments on stuff that I post on TikTok because sometimes I'll post like forward future things about the book. And if it's something really spoiler or really tea, I'll either put like a warning or I'll tell her not to watch it. But there are like certain little things. She's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Mind your business. Shut your mouth."
No, I want to know. See, that's the thing too, and we'll get on to this also in another episode. But TikTok really has me thinking I'm being creative with my thought process, and then the other times I'm like, okay, so I was actually just being feed how to think about these stories developing.
I have a whole like folder saved of Throne of Glass TikToks to send you after you're done reading that
Mm-hmm.
I've been like actively waiting for you to get to these parts. So
Hell yeah, I can't wait. I'm just excited to like finally know what everybody's talking about. I want to know what these are. I used to be one of those people who loved spoilers, and now as I'm reading this, I'm like I do not want to know the spoilers. So, I'm finally understanding why you are the way that you are.
yeah, it makes the story so much better when you don't see something coming. Or like if you have like a little
Mm-hmm.
hint of something like that you're looking forward to, but you don't know the full story, sure, that's okay. But if you already know the story, what's the point in reading it? That's how I feel anyway. Have you ever read The Silent Patient?
Yeah, I did.
So basically,
I
I
liked
got a
it.
giant spoiler accidentally when I was literally like one chapter in the book and I never finished it. And I was like, there's no point in me finishing to read it because I already know something big.
But see, I feel like books like that, sorry guys, this is a side tangent. Just deal with it for a second. I feel like books like that, I'm really not too terrified about getting spoilers for because I feel like there's only one spoiler that's going to come out of it. Whereas books like these that are series, there's multiple things that can happen and develop or change. So that's why I'm like, small books, I'm like, just tell me what's going on.
No,
Tell me
I
the
feel the
tea.
opposite though. If I am in reading a huge book series and I get like one little spoiler, I'm like, okay, but there's so much more to read. There's so much more story. Like, it's not the end of the world if I got this one big spoiler. Like, I wish I wouldn't have seen it. But if it's a little book and there's like
Mm-hmm.
one big plot twist and then you get that plot twist, I'm like, what's the point of even continuing to read it?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, there's no point. I already
Yeah.
know. And it's also going to shape how you read the rest of the book and all the little like
Yeah, that's
hinting,
true.
foreshadowing stuff and all the things that are supposed to make you question what's going on won't make you question it because you
Yeah.
already know the big plot twist. I hate that.
Well, I guess I was talking more of like I'm okay with getting the spoilers for short books like that if I'm just not going to read it. So like
Oh, yeah,
podcasts like this.
I get that. Kind of. Not really, but that's
No, but
okay.
now I still do. I still am respecting the spoiler sacredity now because I'm like, I don't want any of the spoilers. I want to find this out on my own. I have an idea. And if somebody tells me and it's wrong, I don't want to find out on the internet.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, so after a few days of Celaena hanging out in the dungeon, she's eventually let go, but she's still heavily guarded. And the one thing that Celaena can't get out of her mind during this time is Nehemiah's death and how the crime scene was so specific to one of the previous champion's signatures, Grave. And so let's recall real quick, Grave was eliminated during the final duel when she beat him in a sparring match. So he walked away alive and with plenty of motive for wanting to put Celaena in her place and then to revamp his reputation to be known as the guy who killed the Light of Elway. So Celaena sneaks out of her room via a secret tunnel and she does some investigating around the vaults to see if he's been doing any gloating about this hit. And of course, he had been. So she ends up finding him at this bar and he bolts out the back. And then in Graves' POV, we learn that he's actually been waiting for this because he knew that she would try to find him. And he's got it in his head right now that he thinks that he's going to be able to kill Celaena coming after him right now.
That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. He obviously doesn't know Celaena Sardathian, okay? I mean, we all know
No, I
her
know. I'm like,
reputation.
literally. And I'm like, she beat you so easily in the duel. And you think that you're going to be able to kill her right now?
That is male arrogance slash audacity if I've ever heard it. Like, okay, well, like, I was not expecting that the first time, but obviously I could beat her. Like, she's just a little girl.
Just a little girl.
I would like to know where they get the audacity personally.
That's something I think that people are still looking for. So I don't think we've gotten any answers quite yet, but I do know it's a hot topic. So back to the scene. Grave runs back to this back alley to fight one-on-one. He thinks that's going to really give him the advantage that he needs. And this is how the scene goes down. Grave is waiting for her, methodically planning how he's going to rip her to shreds and pay her back for embarrassing him in front of the king. And then through a building mist, Celaena stalks through, walking in like a predator closing in on its prey. Grave runs to swing his daggers at her, and then Celaena swerves his strike. She drops to her knees while spinning around and then slicing his shins. He stumbles back and she gets up, kicks him in the chest, kicks him into the wall, runs up and grabs his hands. She puts a dagger in each wrist, pinning him against the wall. And she, long story short, is not playing around. And I am here for it. She was such a badass in this scene.
I feel like she knows exactly what she wants to do because I also feel like she knows people so well. Like she's so good at reading people. I feel like she knew like he was going to come in arrogant. He was going to come in not expecting her to be able to take him down.
I love it when she's got her I's dotted, her T's crossed, and she shows us who Celaena Sardothian is. And that's her right here. That's who I imagine Celaena Sardothian.
I also feel like we get to see in future books, like especially in Queen of Shadows, which isn't the third book, the one we're going to cover next, but the fourth book, that girly is always thinking 10 steps ahead. And I feel like we'll get to see a lot of that in the future.
I love that. So exciting. Okay, so she ends up interrogating Grave and she finds out how he was contracted to kill Nehemiah. And make a long story short, she does end up killing him. And in fact, she brutally kills him and she cuts off his head, brings it back to the king during his council meeting, and calls out a man named Mollison for contracting Nehemiah's death. Apparently, Nehemiah had gotten one of his slave trade expensive programs declined, and he was kind of salty about that. And that's what resulted to him contracting Grave, because Grave was Mollison's champion during the Champions tournament. So that's how they were in contact with each other. And I'm honestly just surprised that Celaena didn't also kill Mollison during this when she found that out.
Surprised a little bit too, but I feel like the way he's described is like this kind of uppity, like, you know, castle nobleman and stuff. I feel like she also thought, like in my head, I'm like, I think that she also knew that prison and execution by the king would be plenty of punishment for him as well in his little privileged lifestyle.
I hope he does get punished because I feel like the king might not punish him.
Maybe not.
So after this show and the king's meeting, Celaena goes back to Nehemiah's room to gather her belongings and to help like pack up for the people coming to get her stuff from LA. She finds a note which basically confirms that Nehemiah was working with a rebel group trying to raise this army for Terrason. And then she finds the same word book that Davis had in his office. But in Nehemiah's, there's word markings besides this mysterious symbol that translates to "do not trust." But this is beginning to get too much for her. So she's like still trying to wrap her head around everything. All the things that Nehemiah was hiding from her. She was conspiring with these rebels, working with Archer, trying to get Celaena to join in on the fight, but not including her on all the plans. And this whole time, like as she's recalling this, I'm just like, yeah, I know. Why couldn't she just tell Celaena what was going on? Like, she already knew Celaena was against the king, and she already knew that she was, like, fed up with everything. So I'm just wondering why Nehemiah did not feel like she should involve Celaena in this.
Yeah, I don't know. I know in, like, the last episode we talked about Nehemiah basically, like, encouraging Celaena to take a stand, and Celaena kind of pushing back on it, being like, no. I almost wonder if she was waiting for Celaena to be like, either I'm secretly taking a stand or this is what I'm doing undercover or something like that before she kind of showed her hand. But it is frustrating because Celaena bared a lot of herself and a lot of her secrets.
Yeah, she told her everything. So that's why I'm just like not sure why Nehemiah just didn't tell her. But she's dead now. So what are you going to do?
What can you do?
Just kidding. R.I.P. I love you. So as Celaena's thinking about all the things that Nehemiah was hiding from her, she somehow realizes the riddle. It's only with the eye that one can see rightly. So there's another eye in the tomb, the eye of Damaris, which is the sword of Gavin. So she runs down to the tomb, she picks it up and looks through this eye, which is basically like a centerpiece on the sword, and she finds another riddle. And it's a long ass riddle that basically alludes to 3 super powerful objects in 3 different locations. So if you're curious on that riddle, it's on page 277. Then later that night, Celaena goes to Nehemiah's temporary gravesite to pay her respects and say her true goodbyes. And as she's doing this, she's doing it alone, so she thinks. But not really, because Kale is following from a distance. So at Nehemiah's grave, Celaena starts singing a song in a language that Kale doesn't recognize. So this sparks his curiosity, and Kale goes to do some deep diving. And he's trying to figure out where this song comes from, why she chose to sing this. And a librarian tells him that what he's describing sounds what only the most inner circle of the royal court of Terrasen would know.
That's tea.
So that's kind of tea. I was going to say, so Kale is starting to piece together that at the very least, Celaena is likely some part of the royal courts of Terrasen, which means that if she chose to reclaim her title at any point, this could be a huge threat to the Havillard family.
I think throughout the book, Kale's realizing that Celaena Sardathian is obviously not her real name. Like, Arabin found her when she was a child, and Terrasen and also a bunch of other countries were in ruin at that point. And so likely her real given name is not Celaena Sardathian. So I feel like he's starting to piece together, like, who could she be? Like, I want to find out where she came from type thing, And I think finding out that she could be some type of nobility or royalty in this other kingdom could be a threat to the current kingdom, which is kind of tea because, like, of all the shit the king has done to him, why are you still so loyal and worried?
That's the tale as old as time. I still don't understand. Like, I understand it's because of his position. Like, he doesn't have a family to go back home to. He's worked so hard for this role and he takes it very serious. But, like, at the same time, in his defense, I feel like he hasn't had any solid proof. Well, I don't know. You can't really explain slave camps.
And also
that
large massacres of slave camps for innocent people that are just trying to reclaim their innocence.
Kale, you're an idiot.
You dumb bitch.
Kale, if you're listening to this,
go screw yourself.
You're the idiot. You need to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we move on to the next day. The carnival that has come into town for baby Holland's birthday is starting to leave. So Celaena still hasn't figured out the riddle on what these 3 powerful objects could be or where they're at. So she goes to Baba Yellowlegs. And when she gets there, Baba kind of puts her foot in her mouth. She's like, if you pay a little bit more, I might be able to tell you why the prince was here a little bit ago. Now she's on Celaena's hit list, right?
I think no matter what happened between Celaena and Dorian romantically, I think that she has like the utmost respect and feelings of affection toward him. Like, they're friends. And I think she, no matter what, wants to protect him.
She loves him deeply as a friend. Yeah, I agree. So Baba brings Celaena into her tent/cottage thing. It's a disorienting place full of disorienting mirrors. Celaena asks her question and Baba tells her about the Valg, ancient demons from another world who've been trying to conquer Irila for centuries. They figured out how to open portals to other worlds by splitting a piece of the word gate among 3 of the Valg kings, calling these pieces word keys. After the Fae banished the Valg demons, they tried to return the keys, but they couldn't figure out how. So the old original queen, Queen Maeve, had ordered Brannon Galathinius, who, let's remember, eventually became the first king of Terrasen, to hide them. Essentially, the Fae learned that the more word keys one had, the more powerful they could become. Powerful enough to rid magic and magical kingdoms overnight.
That is key, because in the last episode we talked about how Baba Yellowlegs was like, the more important question is not figuring out why you have magic, but why magic left in the first place, because it's not gone everywhere.
That's a good recall.
So I mean, to think that she obviously is very knowledgeable and she's a witch. She might know a thing or two about magic.
For sure, for sure. So, while Baba is explaining all of this, she's also low-key sneaking away because she has a feeling that Celaena is going to try to kill her. So she's planning to do this, and it's getting close to the action scene. Baba jumps out behind of a mirror and knocks Celaena out. And when Celaena comes to, she's tied up, but she quickly gets out of it and she tries to look for another weapon, specifically one that can cut off the head of an Iron Tooth witch. But Baba Yellowlegs shatters a nearby mirror, which throws Celaena off enough to be brought down again. Celaena rolls out of her hold and kicks her across the room. And when Celaena gets back up, Baba is like crawling at her like this possessed, creepy spider. And this whole scene, I just need to say, is a lot bigger, a lot longer than what we're describing. And the long story short is Celaena does grab her pickaxe and chop off Baba's head completely.
Honestly, though, the fact that Baba Yellowlegs put up as much of a fight as she did, like we've seen Celaena time and time again take down opponents that are much bigger than her, much stronger than her, all the things because she's so smart. Baba Yellowlegs must have been a terrifying contender for her to last as long as she did.
Yeah, because I do feel like that's something very big to emphasize. It's that she was not an easy kill. It went on for a little bit. Celaena was cut up. She was getting knocked out, and she barely was able to cut off that head. So Baba really was throwing some 1-2s at her. I'll say
Some
it.
1-2 punch, yeah.
Obviously, she can't leave a dead body lying around, so Celaena shoves Baba's body into the furnace of her own tent. And then she's covered in all this gross witch blood, so she runs back to her room to burn the murder evidence and goes to talk to Mort because during that fight with Baba, she had gotten punctured around her collarbone, and she wanted to just make sure that there was nothing to worry about. But Mort, being Mort, was like, ooh, yeah, that's bad. Because turns out Baba is like the matriarch of the Yellow Leg Witch clan. And once word gets out that she's missing or dead, they will likely come here to demand answers from the king because this is the last place she was seen.
She's like, well, good thing nobody knows I was going to visit her, right? LOL.
LOL. I had nothing to do with this. You cannot trace me to the scene.
Yeah, who could have ever known? Girl math.
And while she was in the secret tunnel, Kale shows up to her room because he's had enough trying to distance himself after she tried killing him. And he's like, I just love her so much. I need to talk to her. So he gets up in her room. She's not there, so he thinks. And he starts to snoop around a little bit to see if Celaena is actually developing any plans to overthrow the king, which makes him feel like quite the asshole when he realizes she's not. In fact, he finds her will, which she had signed just days before, all of her assets over to him if she had ever died. And apparently she signed that before Nehemiah's death.
That's really sad because I feel like he's got to be thinking, well, it wouldn't be this now, but also at the same time, I feel like that just goes to show she had her complete trust in him. I feel like that's what made her betrayal from him so much stronger is that it's obviously very hard for her to trust people. And to find out that the one person she thought she could trust, she technically couldn't. It's got to be so heartbreaking.
Yeah, and I do feel bad for him because I feel like he has been denying her, vocalizing her feelings and thoughts and stuff. Like, I feel like he's just not trying to accept that she's genuine and good and wants the best, but is willing to get her hands dirty to do what needs to get done. And he's just like not willing to accept it. And it's just really not helping him at all.
Yeah. Sorry, Kale. It's kind of your own fault.
So Celaena pops up behind him as he's reading this will. And she's like, at least now if you get fired by the king, you'll have something to fall back on, which is another jab to him because when she showed up to the king's meeting with the head, everyone was confused on how she even got out in the first place without Kale's guards noticing. So that's just making Kale look real bad right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I hate to say it, but Kale kind of had this coming. Kind of had it coming.
And I hate to go even further because I'm going to continue on to how Kale officially lost me as well. She tells him to get the hell out of her room, and then he quickly leaves near to tears, runs to a broom closet, and begins to cry. And I wrote in my notes, I hate to say it, but I think he just gave me the ick.
Yeah, I mean,
running to the broom closet to cry.
I feel like that's like the consequences of your own actions, my dude. Like, it gives me like the guys that when somebody breaks up with them, they're like, stupid, I'm stupid, please take me back. Yeah,
That is the
very
same
icky.
energy.
Yeah.
And it's true too, because the reason why he's in the situation in the first place is because he couldn't accept her being who she was to begin with. So it's like, yeah, she probably would have taken you back if you would have just accepted me, you know?
Well, I think the fact that she put everything in her will to him, I think that even shows him even more that she trusted him implicitly. Like she trusted him without respecting anything in return other than his authentic self and other than his honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And he really fucked it up for himself.
Sure did.
Mm.
And okay, so I think we have briefly mentioned in passing that Celaena had found this book called The Walking Dead. And it's essentially about word marks and magic spells, how to use them together. So from that, she's learned some specific spells that can help her open these sealed doors. And Mackenzie, I want you to quickly explain again, how do magic spells work here, but magic does not? I know I've asked this before, but you know I'm an idiot and it's not clicking for me. I really want to understand.
You're not an idiot, and I have read the whole series, so I have a little bit of
Thank
more
you.
insight than you do. But I know that in the first book, and like kind of leading into the second, when Nehemiah was teaching her all these spells and things of the word marks, basically the way she described it as they are ancient and old and they work outside of magic. They are like spells, but they aren't derivative of like specifically like magic coming from your body, like given. I think you have to have magic in your blood of some kind. Like you have to be a potential magic wielder or have it in your blood. But they are more like a potion that a witch would make as opposed to her making magic from her body. Like that's not possible. But like
Yes. Right.
a magic person that knows these ingredients and knows this potion, this work
Yes.
of whatever,
Okay.
this seance can produce magic from it, but it's not magic from you.
Right.
And it's
Okay.
very
That's actually a
old.
really good
Yeah.
explanation. I like that. That's a good. So everybody has to have magic essentially to use it, but they don't necessarily have magic themselves. They just have to be able to use the word markings to be able and spells to use
Yes.
that magic.
They have to have magical
Okay.
ability to be able to use the word marks, but they are not magic from you. They're old magic. They're old symbols. They're old potions, whatever you want to call them, seances. But they have to be wielded by someone who is capable of producing magic in a world that they could use magic.
Got it. Thank you so much. So, with this door opening spell, Celaena decides to go back down to that hidden passage where she saw that very large rat. So she gets to the locked iron door and she goes through it. She uses the spell and goes through it. She finds another series of repeating passages that take her through what's described as a secret dungeon. And as she gets deeper and deeper, she's starting to develop these headaches, which makes me a little bit sus because Lady Caltaine was also getting a lot of headaches during the time that Duke Parrington was using her during Throne of Glass.
Very true. That's a good little connection there. I don't think I made that connection when I was first reading it. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Eventually, she comes across a cell door that looks like it's been broken open, and she wonders if it belongs to that creature she's been seeing around the castle. She gets through the final door, and she walks into this huge obsidian-covered room that went so high she couldn't even see the ceiling. And she knows exactly where she's at right now. She is in the ominous black clock tower. That was crazy for me. I was like, whoa, did not see that one coming.
Well, they talked about the clock tower so much in the first book, and that's even where like the final duel kind of took place. For her to have found like the inside of it and it to be covered in obsidian. Also, for people listening, if you're like Sarah J. Maas fans and you've read all of the series that she has, obsidian is mentioned a lot in them, which we can talk about when we continue future episodes, but it's never good. It's never a good thing.
That's news to me.
Read the rest of the books.
So Celaena knows that she's not alone in this clock tower. She knows this because the eye of Elena is not glowing the way it was when she was higher above ground, which is not a good sign. And to make things worse, if she is seeing this creature outside of the room or outside of this dungeon area, that means it knows how to get in and out of these iron doors that she just opened. So that's not great. And then a side note on this whole moment going on, Dorian saw Celaena walking down to this passageway and he noticed that she looked like she might be getting into some trouble. So he's been trailing behind her. And then as soon as Celaena realized that she needs to run out of this clock tower, the creature jumps out at her. She slices its chest and it lets out this terrifying roar. Dorian hears it and yells for Celaena, and she comes running up the stairs, sword in one hand, dagger in the other hand, and she's like, we gotta go right now. So they're running up and they're closing through all these doors just as she opened them, but the creature is breaking through every single one. And they get to this last point where if the creature gets through, it's let loose in the castle. They're holding up this door. The creature gets its hand out and latches it onto Celaena's shoulder. Dorian's panicking and he's like, fuck it. At this point, I gotta do something. So he uses his powers to try to wield this door shut. Celaena notices, but she's like, I don't have time to really acknowledge all this. So she just tells him, iron is immune to magic. It's not going to work. And so he's like, well, great. We're fucked, aren't we? And I would be so scared at this situation. I would be like, well, I thought I was special here. I don't know what to do now.
First of all, this situation is horrifying because why the fuck is there some creepy creature down there? Second, though, and I thought this when I read back in the book, I can't remember I think it was in Crown of Midnight, maybe like a couple episodes ago. Celaena was going to the library at night and she saw some like hooded, cloaked figure, like monster looking thing. And like kind of walking around, and she got a really bad feeling. Like the eye of Elena started to glow. And I'm just, what is that the creature that we saw, or is that the thing that was walking around? Because if so, does it already have access out into the castle? You know what I mean? Like, are they cutting off of its access, or are they not related at all? That's what I thought anyway, because she saw this weird hooded, dark, ominous figure like creeping across the library that gave her that same feeling of dread and the glowing of the necklace. I don't know. That's what I thought when I was reading this.
When I read it, I did assume it was the thing that she saw in the basement, but I don't think it, I definitely could see it being unclear because I think that it's like there were so many mysterious things that she's seen that it's very difficult to pinpoint. So Celaena, during this time, the creature is holding onto Celaena's shoulder, and Celaena's like, okay, fine, your magic's not going to work. I need you to go run upstairs and find the book of the Walking Dead. Don't worry, it'll find you. I need to get a containment spell. He returns, they switch spots, and Celaena's working on this spell, and once she's finished with it, she tells Dorian to jump. The creature gets out and immediately is caught in this spell. So Celaena cuts off another head and then stabs it again for good measure. And as they debrief about this back in his room, Celaena's like, listen, I promise I won't tell anyone about your magic because you literally just saw me bring up some spooky creature. And the tea is she actually thinks that his dad created this creature, but she doesn't want to tell Dorian this for some reason, which I have not learned why, because she knows that Nehemiah was holding secrets from her, and that's not helped the situation that she's in. So why is she not wanting to tell Dorian about this?
I think that when I was reading this, I had those same questions too. If I'm like putting myself in her perspective though, she did just lose trust in someone that she really thought she could trust wholeheartedly. And also I feel like as much as she loves Dorian as a friend and as like as someone she feels like she probably can confide in, he's also his father's son. And is going to be the king one day. And like, I feel like she probably doesn't know if she can fully trust him.
Yeah, actually, I think that is valid. I wasn't putting myself in her situation.
Ask the empath. I can always tell you.
That's how you know, because I was just reading this as definitely the third person. I was like, hello, have we not learned anything here?
I'm always like, how are they feeling? What do you think they've gone through recently?
I love that though. Maybe that's why my emotional intelligence is developing a little bit better.
From me?
No, from reading.
Oh, yeah, that.
I'm sure you're helping me out as well. I'm sure you're helping as well.
Yeah, we'll say it's from reading though. That makes more sense.
Okay, but that was basically a lot, right? Though, like everything that just happened. She found the inside of the clock tower, brought up some scary monster that she thinks was created by the king from some forgotten dungeon. Dorian used his powers in front of him, and she was able to use word markings, which apparently can only be used by people who have magic in their blood. Anyways, before we conclude this story time, I do want to talk about a few smaller details, like the fact that during this time that Celaena's been grieving Nehemiah's death, she's been inching closer to Dorian again, and he's not mad about it.
I'm sure he is not mad about it.
Yeah, so interesting. Is she going to get back with him? Who knows? Do you think that ship has sailed, or do you think she's going to get back with him? What do you think? Well, I guess you already know the vibe.
Perhaps.
Maybe I should give
I was going to say, what's your prediction? Because even though you have read ahead a little bit, but you really haven't read that far ahead. You really don't know anything.
Yeah.
Actually, tell us what you thought in this moment reading.
Yes. In this moment reading, I felt like in Celaena's head, Kale was the bad guy 100%. She hates him. She's done with him. Like everything's cut off with him and he's done. So in my head, that ship has sailed, and she's never really had anything against Dorian. Dorian has only ever been supportive and showing up for her. Like he's built that relationship with her more than like during that champions duel and whatnot. So I think that I could see it happening. The only issue is that she's not royalty. So it's like, would that realistically work out? Would he be able to actually have a relationship with her? But I do feel like she still has that kind of love, like intimate love for him.
I think that she does. I think that right now her feelings are so scrambled with Kale and with Nehemiah's death because I know we've talked about it being a really pivotal moment for her and it being like her only friend. But in this time, like she is deeply grieving Nehemiah. And she's deeply grieving like the words that were left unsaid and the last words that they said to each other. Like she is absolutely destroyed by Nehemiah's death. So I think that her romantic interests at this part of the book leave a lot to the imagination. Like, will she forgive Kale? Is she going to move back to Dorian? Like, what's in store for her? Because emotionally, she's so all over the place.
And on the topic of Nehemiah, she was a huge, like, public figure. If we hadn't said that already, she was a huge public figure. People called her the light of Elway, the biggest person trying to make a stand against Adarlan's conquering. And basically now news has spread practically everywhere about her death. And it's caused a lot of disruptions in the slave camps. And so much so that the king of Adarlan has ordered this huge royal council meeting, in which brings in a lot of dukes and such of the lands. And one of those dukes is Kale's dad.
Boo. Although maybe he needs a little stress in his life right now, honestly.
So I think that Kale's dad coming into town, it's going to be more low-key news. I won't really like dive into all of that too much, but basically just know that dynamic that Kale had is his dad really wanted him to be in the courts and like political stuff, and Kale was like, I don't want to deal with that stuff, and that's why he walked away from his family. So it's been 10 years since he's seen his dad, and his dad is all politics, Kale's all protection and love, and they're gonna butt heads.
Tea. Can't wait to hear about that next week, maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. Don't forget, guys, that we do have our emails open for our bookish battles. So please submit if you or your friend have any crazy short stories about your life. We want to hear it. And we want to get to know our Pika friends. So don't be weird about it, okay?
I will say we've already gotten a couple submissions where
really?
Yes, they're really funny too. I can't wait to read them. Also, I feel like we really want to get a few before we start making an episode out of it. So please send in your stories. We love reading them, and we honestly, we get so few story submissions now. You're almost guaranteed to get your story read on the podcast. All 10 people will hear.
Yeah, that's our goal. We want to get 10 submissions before we start making this a regular thing. So if we can hit that goal and you guys promise to spread the word, we will start doing the little micro peek sessions for you guys.
Ooh.
Ooh. All right, Peekers, that is the end of this week's plot. Next week, come back as we take a peek at Sarah J. Maas's Crown of Midnights, chapters 45 through 56, which is going to be the end.
And be sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram at plot.peak. And if you want to send us a bookish battle story, you can send it to plotpeakgirlies, no spaces, no capitalization, at gmail.com. And just put in there, like, put the title Bookish Battle or, story time or something so that we can read over and file it into the right place.
Yeah, please do, because we're just two
We're
girls.
so small, such small girls.
We're doing our best.
All
Anyways,
right, guys. Bye.
bye.